Right, guys, so we're going to talk about some interesting techs and interesting engines you can play in Rescue Ace. Now, one of the really cool things about Rescue Ace is none of the cards lock you into Rescue Ace monsters or fires or warriors or anything like that, which means there's a whole host of cards that you can add to make this deck a lot better. It's also got a relatively compact engine, so if you want to see what the ratios are, look in my videos up here, somewhere around, and you guys will see the different ratios that you can do so that you can fit all these engines. But in general, I would say you have somewhere between 18 and 12 slots for non-engine, depending on how big or how small your rescue ace core is going to be. So, what are some things you can fit in? Well, we have standard hand traps. Now, I haven't put any standard hand traps here because it's really going to depend on the format. The only card I would probably advise not to play is Impermanence. I don't think Impermanence is amazing just because you do set 4 from deck and you do have cards that put cards on field. The combination of those two things, I would say, makes Rescue Ace not amazing when you combine it with things like Imperm, because often your Imperm will be turned off and you'll have a bunch of cards set for. So yeah, take with that what you will. I personally wouldn't play that card. But what's up? So firstly, we've got Small World alongside some fire bridges. So Small World is absolutely amazing on Rescue Ace, and I actually think Small World is almost good enough that you could consider it a main deck staple. You have such good one card combos of Airlifter that it's really worth playing a card like Small World, and they are very, very good in archetype. Well, sorry, they're very good fire bridges that you can play that are worth playing because they're good going second. So Kurakara and Dogoron, which address the main issue with this deck, which is sometimes dealing with untargetable boss monsters. These will help you deal with things like the Poirly Noir, your arrival at Ignistus, etc., while giving you a secondary use as a bridge for Small World. So I do think Small World is almost always a 3-of in Rescue Ace if you can fit it. Definitely a really, really good card. Keep an eye out for that. Next, we have Heat of the Fire Channeler. So there's going to be a Fire Duelist pack coming out soon, and that's got a whole host of fire support. And this is one of the cards coming out. Now, this is an interesting card. Now, it discards itself and a fire monster to search a fire monster with higher attack. This card is pretty good. Now, it does have some disadvantages. It locks you into fire monster effects for that turn, and it does cost a discard, but it's still a pretty good searcher. Now, I don't think the deck hugely needs this, but it's still an option. For those of you who perhaps don't want to have Prosperity, for example, this is an option of a card that you can play to fit inside the deck, which is quite nice. What's awesome as well is it does have a secondary effect of special summoning itself when the fire monster is destroyed, so definitely a card to look into. I don't think it's the best, but definitely a good budget option. Next up, Lancea. So I have been testing Lancea and I don't think it's too bad. One of the things that you will struggle with in this deck is going to be that runic matchup, is going to be it's going to be people banishing stuff or evenly matching your back row, and Lancea really helps to address that. What's even better about Lancea in this deck as well is the fact that you do draw cards through your field spell, so it's not hard to see this card sometimes, and you do play things like Small World to tutor it if you really need it. So I do like Lancea as a potential side deck card because it does also crush some matchups like Castira and Flunderies. On top of that, it will stun a runic player, for example. So yeah, Lancea is definitely a really good option. Have a look at that great card. Next up, we have a Super Heavy Samurai engine. So Super Heavy Samurai works really well with Rescue Ace for a couple of reasons. Now, to start off with, Super Heavy Samurai opening Wakashi provides you with a Pendulum Summon plus potentially a negate. The reason why this is so good is because you do have a lot of cards that are good on normal summon, like your Airlifter and like your Hydrant. And so having a way to get those cards out for free is pretty good. Now, it will block up your skills, but there are some combos that you will see with this deck that do allow you to pop or remove your skills using things like Baxia so that you can still set 4. And even with that I'd rather have 3 Rescue Ace spells and 1 Omni Negate than 4 Rescue Ace spells and traps, to be honest. So yeah, I don't even think that's too bad. But yeah, definitely Super Heavy Samurai engine is really good. And then when we get the new Battle in Boxer support, it becomes even more insane because right now Super Heavy Samurai can't really start your engine, but once the new fire support comes out, we get King Dempsey, which searches any level 4 or lower fire warrior monster. That is absolutely insane because that means we can search our Airlifter or an Impulse if we really want to, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, yeah, Super Heavy Samurai engine is going to start your combo and provide you with a negate. I would say when this Fire Duelist pack comes out, this will probably become a little bit better than the Cyburst package, but I still think it's very, very worth it. Next up, we have Instant Fusion, Proxy F Magician, and Mud Dragon. So one of the biggest weaknesses you'll find in this deck is getting impermed or veilored on your turbulence or on your other monsters, because that's what people are going to need to do to stop your set 4 from deck. How do you stop that? Well, stop them targeting. If you stop them being able to target your turbulence, it's almost impossible turn 1 for them to stop you setting 4 from deck. And how can you do that? Well, Mud Dragon. So there are quite a few combos. Now, I don't think I showed that in my combo video, but they're fairly straightforward. Essentially, any combination of 2 to 3 Rescue Ace monsters that you can get either 2 on field and 1 in hand, or 3 on field, allows you to get to Proxy F Magician, which allows you to make Mud Dragon. Once you've made Mud Dragon, they can't target your cards anymore. This card is also really, really good in certain matchups. Again, when we look at matchups like the Runic matchup, if you have a Mud Dragon just on the field or even in the mirror, it's so hard for your opponent to interact with you because they can't target your cards now, and then you've also got them protected from monster effects. So definitely something you should look at. I think Proxy F Magician is worth playing in Rescue Ace, even if you don't care that much about the targeting thing, just for the fact that it's a Cyburst link too, which you need for some combos. And then Super Poly is going to be pretty good next format as well, so Mud Dragon becomes a great card, and Instant Fusion is a free way to shoot that out. It's also a level 4 body, so if you want to do some rank plays, that's there as well. Next up, we have 1-for-1 and Reinforcement of the Army. These are both just good consistency cards for the deck, and in fact I'll also put Extrav and Pot of Prosperity with that as well. These are all just generic good consistency cards. There's no real reason not to play these. Extrav is mainly for the trap builds, or if you're not doing anything with your extra deck, Extrav works too, just because it's 2 free cards. Your deck doesn't need the extra deck. Prosperity is nice because it's cracked, if you can play Prosperity. And then yeah, 1-for-1, there are some 1-for-1 combos as a result of Hydrant being a 1-card combo a lot of times. I didn't bother showing those because it's a one-off. We're not playing around, just a one-off. But it's still worth including in your deck, same as Rotor. Next up, we have the Tainted Treasure Snake Eye cards. So this is quite a bit in the future. So it's even further than the Fire Duelist pack, but I still think it's worth mentioning. When this card comes out, it's absolutely insane for Rescue Ace, just because it special summons a fire monster, level 1 fire from your hand or deck, and your main starter is a level 1 fire. When this card comes out, definitely you're going to be wanting to play this in a deck. It's going to have so much synergy and ability to start your combos. It also means, for example, doing things like normal summoning your airlifter and getting impermed doesn't matter, because then you just send that, summon your Hydrant, and you're still playing, which is awesome. Now, here's a bit of a spicy one, but I do think it's going to have validity, and we're going to see if people do it. But I think limited removal is actually very good in Rescue Ace, simply because when you combine your field spell, your reinforce, and how big your machines are, which is 28, 3000, and 25, you can OTK people without them expecting it with this card. This deck also has such good card economy that you can afford to play cards like this just to end the game when your opponent won't expect it. So if you want to play Go Second Rescue Ace and you want to play a card like Limiter Removal, I do think this does have some validity in the deck. I don't think it's going to be the best meta build, but I do think you'll catch some people by surprise and kill them, because think about it. You've got a Rescue Ace Turbulence, boosted by Reinforce, so it's 45, boosted by Field Spell, so it's 5,000. Then you go Damage Step, you attack, you declare Limiter Removal, and it goes to 10,000 attack. If your opponent lets that attack through, then you just win. So yeah, I do think Limit Removal is a very good card. I do think it's not the most meta card, but keep an eye out for it, guys. I think it has some potential. Then we have Floodgates. So look, this deck does play quite well with Floodgates. There are some trap variants of this deck that play some traps, and there are some variants that are main decking goes in. Skill Drain's also not bad. When you have your Field Spell up, Skill Drain is a lot better, because Field Spell gives you that grind that you need to play underneath it. But yeah, both of these are quite good. You can play under Rivalry, but I would say in this deck you much more want to be stuck under Machines than Warriors. So if you're stuck under Warriors, you can't really do anything. If you're stuck under Machines, you're completely fine. So yeah, definitely good Floodgates to play in this deck. I would say at the beginning of the format, I wouldn't risk playing it. Runic is still around, and there are decks like Altergeist as well in the format who are going to be playing Floods anyway, so I don't think it's worth rushing into these Floodgates straight away. But once the format is more solved, these definitely will have some potential. Next up, we've got Solemn Judgment. I do think it's quite important to have some sort of spell and trap negate. So you've got Solemn Judgment, you've got Imperial Iron Wall. I mean, there's quite a few, but Floodgates, counter traps like this are going to be very, very necessary for your deck going second, because trust me, those big board blowouts is probably your biggest weakness in Rescue Ace. Then next up, we've got Underworld Goddess. So Underworld Goddess, this deck can spam bodies on the field very, very easily. And like I said, you do sometimes struggle with untargetable monsters and towers. I've tested so much with this deck, and this comes up almost every game. Like, I can just climb and climb and climb and climb, make Underworld Goddess, and negate my opponent's board, which is absolutely great. So I think this is a great card that should be in most players' extra decks. We have Blackluster Soldier. On the other side, a lot not being able to be targeted right now is so good, because so many of the top decks, your Runics, your Kashtira's, etc., are going to struggle to out untargetable monsters. This is also very easy to make in Rescue. You have a lot of high-level monsters that just vomit themselves out onto the board. So definitely an option, I would say. Look into Blackluster Soldier, it's not bad. Next up, we have Salamangreat Heatleo. This is an option as well. I think this card has a little bit of potential just because of its ability to shuffle spells and traps back, and the fact that it's 2 fire effect monsters, which you can do in this deck. So for example, instead of going into Unicorn, which will force you to discard, if you know you have to remove a spell or trap, you go into Phoenix, and then you use Phoenix plus another one of your rescue aces to make Heatleo. Why is this good? Because now I don't have to discard a card, and also Heatleo's got pretty good attack as well. It's got 100 more attack than Unicorn, so I don't know. I think it's worth it. I think it's an interesting option for the deck. You also have the second effect, which could come up if you want to play 2 Heatleo. I personally wouldn't, but yeah, still something to look at as well. So guys, those are some of the decks. Look, there are so many more. This deck works with everything. You can play Fenrir in this deck. You can play Kashtira's in this deck. You could play Sprites probably in this deck if you wanted to. So look, guys, whatever you want to play in this deck, play it, but these are some of the best ones that I've found. If you think of any more, definitely let me know. Put them in the chat below, and then yeah, look, we can all work to making this deck absolutely amazing. But yeah, Rescue Ace is going to be an absolutely crazy deck. So guys, that was the final part of my Rescue Ace guide. Thank you all for watching if you're still here, but I'm going to have loads of Rescue Ace replays coming out, both before and after Dune. So if you guys want to see that, make sure you subscribe, stay on the channel, because I'm going to have loads of that content. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.